What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode here, the Side Guys Football Forum. I'm one of your co-hosts, I'm Inside, joined as always by my good friend, my good buddy, the other half of the Side Guys, are Tad the Side. And Tad, in maybe a little bit of fantasy football news, I think this could maybe affect things a little bit as far as like long-term aspirations, but a receiver just got paid, and unfortunately, it was not Brandon Ayuk, because that would have made me a little bit happy.
You would be much more jovial. We would
I would have been probably a lot more ecstatic.
We would have went live with that.
I don't know if we would have went live with that.
Yes, we would.
Not as breaking as the Christian McCaffrey trade, which till
That's
this day,
still legendary.
Pat can attest to this. To this day, I still tell him I can't believe we traded for Christian McCaffrey. Like
I can't believe you traded for Christian McCaffrey in the middle of recording
without giving up a first round pick. I think it still blows
Thursday.
my mind. It just still blows my mind. But let's just jump back to the breaking news sort of here. The Chicago Bears have just given DJ Moore, the wide receiver, an extension. He just got a 4-year, $110 million contract extension. He is now the third highest paid receiver in the NFL right now. He also got the third most guaranteed money with $82.6 million guaranteed. The only receivers higher than him in guaranteed money are A.J. Brown with $84 million and Justin Jefferson with $110 million. Both those receivers also got their extensions done this offseason as well. So, Tad, what do you think about this move by the Chicago Bears locking up DJ Moore for, setting up a good core? Because obviously they drafted a Dunze, they drafted Caleb Williams. Now they're extending, they extended Cole Kmet last year, if I remember correctly. They drafted Darnell Wright. They're obviously extending DJ Moore here. So outside of Keenan Allen, they have a pretty good young core going forward.
I like it a lot, both in terms of fantasy value and just pure on the field football value, because it's funny. I'm almost 30. I'm allowed to say this. Back in my day, I remember when if you were below like 5'11" in terms of height, they were like, "We'll never pay you wide receiver one money." Man, that day is just so long gone at this point. I'm actually shocked at that stat you shared. So Tyreek Hill is making less than DJ Moore, huh?
In guaranteed money, that's the biggest thing here.
That's why. And the thing with these contracts, you gotta remember, is like these numbers may scare you. That Jordan Love contract, I was freaking out about when that first happened, but the GMs structure it in such a way that they can get out of this in like 3 or 4 years. But I don't think they will need to, because I think this will be a pairing that works out very well. DJ Moore shocked me how well he worked out in Chicago. I was expecting him to find success there.
Honestly, Ted, he shocked me by how well he did in Carolina. With all the tumultuous times they had a quarterback where Cam Newton was starting to go on the downward trend as well, but he found a way to keep producing. So,
and look, I mean, people make fun of us, and when you do a draft show, you're going to get a lot of picks wrong. We've gotten a lot of picks right. Don't get me wrong, but people have more fun with the ones you get wrong. And DJ Moore was one of the ones. I remember your opinion on him, but I was very anti DJ Moore.
That was way before the podcast. That's
I know, but I'm just saying, like my own personal opinion.
Yeah.
I wasn't a big believer. I thought he would be a fine second round receiver, but when the Panthers took him in the first round, I believe like the second or third receiver in that year's draft, I was like, come on, like, what are you doing here? So he's been proving me wrong time and time again. I'm officially a believer. He's, not your, again, this is why I'm like, back in my day, he's not your traditional number one receiver, but he can do it. So then the reason I bring up Tyreek Hill is because I'm not saying the play style or the offense style is going to be the same, but I don't think Tyreek Hill would be as good without Tua, and I definitely don't think Tua would be as good without Tyreek Hill, and I think we're going to see that same relationship between Caleb Williams and DJ Moore. So locking that down is a very good move. And in terms of fantasy value, I mean, not so much in snake drafts, because I think DJ Moore's value stays the same. This doesn't really affect his value one way or the other on a 1-year basis. However, in dynasty leagues, DJ Moore just got a whole lot more valuable.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. So, yeah, DJ Moore just got paid. He's going to be locked into the Chicago Bears offense for quite some time now, at least the next 5 years, depending, how things go with the Bears. Maybe a trade will happen. Now, who knows about that? But as of right now, looks like the core offense for the Bears has been set with this extension here. And this may affect all of your different bets and sports bets and fantasy aspirations when it comes to strategy. And our good friends at Underdog Fantasy want to help you get into the action because, yeah, with this DJ Moore news, maybe things will change as far as like how you make certain bets, as far as like, Underdog Fantasy, or whether it's like you bet on any other platform. I don't think you should bet on any other platform. Underdog Fantasy has
No,
got
you
you covered
absolutely
there
should not.
for sure. And to sort of sweeten the deal, Underdog Fantasy has shared a promo code that we want to share with you guys. That promo code is DESAI, DESAI. You can double up on your initial deposit of $10 or more, up to $500. Courtesy of our good friends at Underdog Fantasy. I mean, you can bet on anything. We got the NFL. We got the Hall of Fame game happening on Thursday between the Bears and the Texans. So that is happening on this Thursday. The NFL season will be kicking off at the end of the month, towards the beginning of September. Obviously, you got the NCAA season starting up. You got the second half of the MLB season. You can bet on the Olympics as well. There's a lot of things you can be betting on right now. All you have to do is make anywhere between 2 and 8 potential picks. The more picks you can make, the more potential money you can win. Whatever you're comfortable betting, you can use the website. You can use the mobile apps as well, either on Android or Apple. It's very user friendly. Really easy to get into it. So get into it. Use our promo code DESAI, DESAI, to double up on your initial deposit of $10 or more, up to $500, courtesy of our good friends at Underdog Fantasy. And so, Dad, we're talking about DJ Moore, and I know we already talked about receivers here. So we're going to get the last 2 positions in our positional rankings episodes. We're going to be combining them into one episode because, Tad, I know it's sort of like we're both doing research for both these positions. Not a lot of information out there, but there's a reason, because it's sort of hard to compile good information for both of these positions when it comes to a fantasy perspective. Obviously, when you're talking about kickers and defenses, when it comes to real life application, the training camp battles, and rookie kickers, and just obviously rookie defenders on new defenses, how are they going to adjust all this stuff? Lots of things you can write about that, but when it comes to fantasy, it's a little bit different here. So we're combining both of those, the kickers and the defenses, into our rankings episode today. So we're going to start with defenses. I think there's a little bit more that we could divulge into there. So Tad, looking at the defenses, what's one that you're sort of staying away from? And talking about defenses and kickers, I know a lot of people like to stream them, but usually if you can get a really good one,
very valuable.
You're kind of set for the entire season. You don't have to worry about attacking the waiver wire each and every week to be like, okay, I like this matchup better. I like this matchup better. You're not always going to have good matchups on the waiver wire. So if you can get a good one, that could really set you up. But if you get a bad one, that could hurt you as well. So what's one defense that you may not be touching, even when it comes to waiver wire aspects as well?
So we're kind of like a brainstorm live on air. I don't know if this is a fit for our upcoming, by the way, 101, there we go, series, or if this should be an episode on its own. But this is a very common fantasy mistake a lot of people fall into. What do you think? Common fantasy mistakes? Own episode or 101?
I think that could probably be. We could discuss that either way. I think it fits into both categories. It's like that Venn diagram, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Both the circles there, so it could be right in that middle one. So
I think it depends on how we frame it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There we go. And see, people, that's how the cheese is made right there. Bread is made. What's the saying? Cheese is made, bread is made.
I think the common one I've heard, that's how the sausage is made.
Sausage is made. That's it. There you go.
I think you can use any food. I think you should be okay.
I think most people know how bread is made. Anyway, so yes, I liked what you brought up is, you can stream defenses. You absolutely can. But every year, I'm not saying this will totally wreck your season, but it will cost you a couple games where a team is really, really good. I've like I said, every year in every league I've seen it, where a team is really, really good and they're streaming defenses, and it seems week after week after week after week, they're really good. But here's the problem. By around week 10, they are at the very bottom of the waiver waiver wire order. There we go. Waiver wire order. Sorry, it's 10 o'clock my time. I'm a little out of it. Waiver wire order. Really? They're like number 9 or 10. Shocker, I know. And the problem is, streaming defenses sounds great until that tactic runs out, meaning it will backfire on you eventually. It's not a matter if, it will happen. So that's why, like you said, finding a good defense is really, really important, and kind of keeping the stability of your roster. because again, this is inevitability is a good player will go out on your roster for a significant amount of time. If you don't need to worry about your defense being the number one waiver request there, then you can focus on that gap. But I will tell you this is one defense you should not be looking out for, and I kind of went with the easy route here. The Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
I think this is entirely dependent. And I know a lot of people are going, wow, big shocker there. Because if you're listening to this podcast, chances are you already know quite a bit about football. But I'm telling you, this is a trap most casual fans are going to fall into, which is they're going to look at the Bills, defense from last year, who did pretty solid. They finished the top 10. They were a top 10 defense last year. I want to say, well, depending on your scoring, around the 5 to 7 range in most leagues is where they finished. The problem is, let's read off all the people that they lost this offseason. Jordan Poyer, I think, will be the biggest loss. He was a solid safety, but also really seemed like the leader of that defense. So that's why he goes first. Micah Hyde, also very, very good safety. Leonard Floyd, honestly, I know people are going to kind of think of him as a little bit of a draft bust, but put together a pretty solid NFL career. Tre'Davious White. That one's really going to hurt. A big one. That one's, I was when I was doing research for this, one of the articles said, if you count that as a loss, I'm like, if you count that as a loss, like who doesn't count that as a loss? I was furious when he went to the Rams. Sorry, LAFB, but I was like, God damn it. The Rams always do this where they get the really good hurt guy and he's just going to be phenomenal for them. And then Tyrell Dotson, also a very underrated player as well on that defense. That's a lot of names to lose. And I know a lot of people are like, well, we still have pass rush. We have Von Miller. Von Miller got paid like $30 million a sack because he only had like 2 last year. Yeah. Like I hate it because I have nothing against Von Miller. I actually really like him. He seems like a cool dude. I think he's washed. I think the dude's done. I hope I'm wrong. I hope he proves me wrong. I hope Al Rowe comes laughing in my face. I don't think it's going to happen. And even if it does, I still don't respect Al. But point being is, I think that this Bills defense is really going to struggle this year to find not just their, the kind of their groove, but their identity. I think a defense lacking identity is a very dangerous thing. And also you look at this division, I think a lot of people are going to think, it's the AFC East. How good are they really? Pretty good. Pretty good. Because the Jets, assuming Aaron Rodgers can stay healthy, which is a big assumption, they're going to be pretty good. That offense is scary good now with Malachi I almost is it Corley or Corkley? Corley, right?
Corley, yeah.
Corley, yeah. So Malachi Corley, the rookie at Western Kentucky, joining Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Aaron Rodgers are really good, albeit old, offensive line. And let's not forget that freaking Miami Dolphins are still there. That's a pretty good offense. And I really, really am a not believer, but I do think the Patriots are going to be better than people think. So
yes,
pretty good division. A defense that lost a whole lot of key players and a key veteran leadership. I'm not a big believer in this Bills defense.
And I think this sort of goes hand in hand with just, the expectations for the offense too, where they have a lot of changing pieces on offense. And so that can affect then overall the defense too. So it's like, very rarely will you get a situation where like this defense is absolutely keeping your team in games, but then it's just like your offense just still can't do anything. But eventually, I suffered through this in the early 2000s with the San Francisco 49ers. We had a pretty good defense, but our offense was just so terrible that it's just like the defense gets tired after a while. Then you let up these big plays and you let up a lot of scores. Then you see a lopsided score. So it's like, that's why it sort of pays to sort of watch the game as opposed to only seeing a box score where it's just like, oh yeah, the defense kind of hung in there, but they hung in as long as they could. So with the changes on offense as well for the Bills, that could be a little bit worrisome for the defense too, as far as aspirations to sort of rack up a lot of points when it comes to fantasy. So I agree. Yeah, the Bills could be one of those teams because then, Tad, I know you said they finished top 5. They actually finished 3rd last year in defensive rankings for the fantasy league. So yeah, that's a big thing to draft a team to potentially finish the top 5 this year. I don't see that happening for sure.
I don't even see them top 10, to be honest.
I still think they got good enough pieces. Like, I know you mentioned Von Miller is like aging, but it's like still they got a lot of other pieces besides it because they got AJ Epinesa, they got Ed Oliver, Matt Milano's a good producer. So it's like when it comes to your fantasy defense, you want to limit points, limit yards, and you want to rack up a lot of sacks and turnovers. So it's like if you can't do some of them, at least you could do the other one.
They can do maybe 3 of those. They definitely aren't going to do 2 of them.
Yeah. So I think that's the thing. So it's like, I think they may be able to hang in there every so often and put up some good points to finish in the top 10. But yeah, it wouldn't shock me either if they're falling out of the top 10 too, because just so many uncertainties surrounding both sides of the football there in Buffalo. kind of the same reasoning as to why you were talking about the Bills and like how they're a top 5 defense last year in fantasy leagues. I'm going with another defense that a lot of people have pegged to finish in the top 5 as well, but I think there's too many changes. But it's very similar to what we're talking about with Buffalo. I go with the Dallas Cowboys. I think they're going to be.
That's an
Now,
interesting one.
I don't think they're going to fall off as much as we're expecting here with the Bills. I still very much think they'll finish in the top 10, but I think the way that people are drafting them, I think, what is it, 2 years ago when we were doing our LAFB draft league and Al Rowe took a defense, I think, what, round 9 or round 8, I think I remember something like that.
Al pulled an Al.
Yeah, exactly. He won the league. So I mean, it's like, say what you want, but it ended up working out for him.
Don't validate him.
But just regardless of the fact that just like, I think the Cowboys are one of those defenses this year where it's like somebody who maybe is not as experienced with fantasy football, or it's like they feel they have the rest of their roster set up. They want to get the defense that they want so they don't have to make changes during the rest of the season. This is one of those defenses that I think a lot of people may be targeting to be like, this is the defense that I want all season long to sort of be a consistent contributor week in and week out. And I just don't see that happening last year because, Tad, look at last year. Cowboys last season scored 7 touchdowns on defense last season, which led the league. And obviously that attributes to Jerome Bland setting the record for most interception returns with 5 of them. The year before that, so in 2022, the Cowboys only scored 3 touchdowns on defense. So it's a stat you can rely on year to year. So this is a very fluctuating stat. So just because they led it last year does not mean they're going to lead it in this coming year. I think we talked about this in our breakdown of the Dan Quinn episode being hired by the Washington Commanders. Mike Zimmer is now the defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. So you have to expect that there's going to be a drop-off in some of the adjustments to the scheme fit and the players just adjusting to new coaching style. So I think that is going to affect things. And then here's the big thing, Tab, but we got 2 critical injuries that I think could affect the Cowboys defense as well. I know you're not a big fan of his, but he's still a playmaker for this defense. Trevon Diggs is recovering from a knee injury. So, I mean, he's recovering from that. We don't know how long that's going to affect him to start this coming season, 2024. And then news just broke, I think it was last week, might have been 2 weeks ago, but one of their key contributors on the defensive line, Sam Williams, he was their 3rd leader in sacks on the team last season. He is out for the season with a torn ACL. So
this must have been a long week for you because I was only like 3 days ago.
That's and time sort of jumbles around here a little bit. So yeah,
time is just a construct, buddy. You're okay.
So I guess that was only a couple days ago. Well, as of recording, it might have been a little bit longer than that, but whatever it is, it's just like the recent news came out that just like they're dealing with 2 injuries there that may affect the rest of their team as well. So it's just like, yeah, I think overall, just with the changes in coaching scheme, going from Dan Quinn to now Mike Zimmer, getting the benefit of so many defensive touchdowns last year, which led to them being so good last year. I don't think they're going to get that benefit this year. So I think a lot of people are going to be drafting the Cowboys defense highly, but I don't think they're going to finish that highly.
I agree with that, especially just because the Cowboys defense always seems to get overdrafted. And just, yeah, I pretty much agree. I think this defense is, and again, look at the division. Everybody but the Giants got better. Washington got significantly better. Philadelphia, you still have to deal with Saquon Barkley, who, by the way, I'm anticipating a really big season from. Perhaps not fantasy-wise, but in terms of, and it's going to sound contradictory, but maybe production-wise. And what I mean by that is I don't know if he's going to produce a whole lot of touchdowns to pay off for your fantasy team, but I think he's going to play a full season, which is really good production. And if I'm not mistaken, the first full season he would play in, 3 seasons, 3 years? Yeah, something like that. Just because I think the Eagles are so good, they don't, have to run it with him 50 times a game. So the Eagles are better. The Commanders are better. Cowboys are worse. It was actually funny because I did see that. The reason I know that was only a couple days ago is because that was one of the headlines on ESPN. Williams goes down for the Cowboys. I'm like, who the fuck is Williams? And then I looked him up. I'm like, I've not heard of this guy because I think it was the year before we started doing the draft podcast. He was a 2022 second round pick at Ole Miss.
Second round pick. Okay.
I know. It shocked me too because I was like, I do not remember this dude at all. But here was a crazy stat in that same article I was reading. Is that he finished with just under 5 sacks, which was good enough for 3rd on the team. Yeah. He only played in 30% of the defensive snaps for the Cowboys. That's pretty good. Yeah. That's pretty good. So now you see why it was such a big deal for the Cowboys because it really felt like he was their secret weapon.
Yeah.
That 100%. A lot of teams were like, oh, they're all going to be worried about Micah, but Sam over there, and now Sam's gone.
No, believe me, I had the same exact interpretation. Like when I read that article, so I was like, "Who the hell is Sam Williams?" I have no idea who this guy is. But then when I was doing research for this episode specifically, I was like, "Yeah, this guy's a solid contributor for this defense, and to lose him, that's going to hurt this defense, especially that defensive line." So, yeah, Cowboys defense may not be all that great this year, but. Now let's talk about some sleeper defenses. So these are some defenses that may go undrafted, possibly. These may be defenses that you target on the waiver wire as streaming options. But just like, yeah, what's a sleeper defense that you think could be a solid fantasy defense?
So this is I wouldn't say defense, but really a team that just got ravaged by injuries. Every year there's a team that catches the injury bug. You know this very well, perhaps best
Believe
of
me. Yeah.
most teams. Because God, I feel like it's been the Niners at least the last 5 out of 7 years. But last year was not the Niners, luckily for you.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you still just can't get over that Super Bowl bug.
It can't happen. I
sorry.
don't know what it is.
I'm sorry.
Really don't know what it
I
is.
hope that keeps being a thing. It's the only thing I have over you. You don't have to agree so quickly.
I kind of do.
Anyway, last year the injury bug bit the Cincinnati Bengals hard. And I know the Joe Burrow injuries got a lot of the love. I'm trying to remember which was it T. Higgins who went down? It was either Higgins
got hurt. Jamar Chase also got hurt last year.
Yeah. So but notice how we're only naming offensive guys because that's what dominated the headlines, which is usually the case. But that defense got hit pretty hard too. And even with the multiple injuries and granted, nothing was as debilitating as those, hence why the offensive ones got more because those were like weeks on end. This one just felt like, oh, Logan Wilson's out. Oh, Trey Hendrickson's out for 2 weeks. Oh, this guy's out for 2 weeks. It was never like, oh, this dude's done for the season. It was just a bunch of like very nagging. And I'm shocked that team honestly held up as well as they did. But that's part of the reason I like them so much is okay, you got a bad luck year. Happens. Okay, it happens. Here's the interesting thing. So even with that bad luck year, the Bengals finished 13th in defensive points in fantasy football last year. Here's even more interesting though, is I decided to look into some more of the categories. They finished pretty much there in almost every category, but this was shocking. They finished 26 in average passing yards allowed per game. Wow. So they were a very bottom tier passing defense. Yet they still finished 13th overall. That's pretty impressive in my book. That shows that, okay, you got some talent. I just don't think things really went your way. And I never thought I'd say this sentence. Bengals were very smart this offseason. They didn't panic. They didn't try to, completely blow up the offensive because it's not a great offensive line, but it's not terrible either. No need to, send a nuke to it. So they did, invest a little bit in it, including their first round pick, if I'm not mistaken. But one thing that they really did that I liked was they made 2 really good secondary signings and signing Von Bell and Geno Stone, especially that Geno Stone signing. Chef's kiss. Sniping. Arguably, I don't even think it's arguable, your biggest divisional rival at this point in the Baltimore Ravens, taking away one of their more underrated defensive players. Love it. I love free agency, sneak attacks like that. So they shored up the secondary, which I already posed was a big weakness of theirs. So hopefully they fix it there. You also look, when I was doing notes here, I almost said one of the best linebacker cores. I think they're just outside the top 3. So I don't quite put them there, but I will say one of the most underrated linebacker cores. Because I bet you,
better word.
Because I bet you if you ask people to list their like top 5 linebacker cores, I don't think a whole lot of people would name the Bengals, but they really should be there because they have Logan Wilson, they have Trey Hendrickson, they have Jermaine Pratt. That's a lot of really, really good talent at the linebacker core that is just overall solid. Like now you can't just be like, oh yeah, he's just an edge rusher. No. He's an edge rusher, and this is why I love Logan Wilson. He may be one of my favorite linebackers in the game. That dude can rush and pass coverage like no other, and so can the other 2. Trey Hendrickson, I'll give you, is a lot better of a edge rusher than a pass cover, but he can drop into coverage as well. Now, here's the real kicker. Here was the deciding factor that made me pick them. Throughout the first 9 weeks, and like we said, if you can hold on to a defense for 9 weeks, that's pretty good. So if you're only willing to take 3 likely bad performances, these are the other 6 opponents the Cincinnati Bengals start their season against. They play the Patriots, the Commanders, the Panthers, the Giants, the Browns, and the Raiders. That's a mighty tempting first half season right there.
That's
Now,
not bad.
granted,
That's not
the
bad at
other
all.
3 are against pretty good teams. Like one's against the Eagles. I'm blanking on the other 2 right now, but I remember being like, oh yeah, they might drop in the negatives for that. But if you're willing to like hold on, if you're confident in the rest of your team and you can just sit through those 3 likely bad performances, the other 6 will likely more than pay off.
Yeah, sometimes it's not always about the talent that you have on defense, but it's the matchups that make a bigger defense. And I think in this case, yeah, for first half of the season there, Bengals will be, hard to find a better team that has a better matchup as far as the first half of the season. So yeah,
Patriots
that's a
week
good
1. Patriots week 1.
so that's a good defense to sort of pick up early and then maybe eventually drop them later for a better second half team. Or yeah, maybe they just, come together during that first half of the season and they ride that all season long. You don't have to worry about picking up another defense. But yeah, that's not bad. It's not bad. They got a really good underrated team there. Hopefully Joe Burrow comes back and he's healthy to go to keep that offense rolling so the defense doesn't have to stress out as much too. So yeah, that's a good underrated pick. And so I'm going to go with another underrated pick here that maybe a lot of people will be thinking about. But with the changes on offense, especially the news that we brought up at the top of the episode, I think Chicago Bears may have an underrated fantasy defense here. So, like we talked about, they're making some improvements on offense. They're drafting a Caleb Williams. They traded for Keenan Allen. They just extended DJ Moore, signed DeAndre Swift in the offseason. So they got a lot of good pieces on offense. I think in conjunction with that, the defense, I think, will now be able to play a lot better because if you remember last offseason, Tad, they made a lot of signings on the defense to improve that side, and they played pretty well. They made that trade midway season where they acquired Montez Sweat as well. So it's they got a lot of good
Did
pieces.
you see, by the way, I think we might have brought this up on the show. Sorry, air rep, but Montez Sweat is the first player in NFL history to lead 2 different teams in sacks in the same season.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. Those are Madden. That's a Madden record right there. That's a record that should only be set in Madden 25.
Yeah. So with all the changes that they made to the defense 2 off seasons ago, in this past offseason, this was mainly focused on the offense. I already listed out all the players that they drafted and traded for and signed. They only made one change on the defense as far as like a key position. They let Eddie Jackson go, one of their stalwart safeties in the back end. They signed Kevin Byard, who's a pretty equal replacement at a cheaper cost as well. They re-signed Jalen Johnson as well. So they got a pretty good core there that they're bringing back that I think going into this year, now with the head coach not having to worry about the defense, offense as much now, he can now focus on the defense, which is where his sort of specialty is, and Matt Eberflus, right? So, I mean, that's, I think, could be a better situation for the Bears. I mean, it's just a better situation overall. They did bring in a new defensive coordinator in Eric Washington, who was an assistant head coach of the Buffalo Bills last season, as well as their defensive line coach. And here's a big stat that sort of stuck out to me, especially when it comes to fantasy defenses. Like I said, your points come from a lot of sacks, interceptions, and of course, keeping the point total low. But the Bills last season ranked 7th in total pressures, and they are 4th in sacks forced. So, I mean, if you can sort of take that over and bring that over to Chicago Bears that Eric Washington is bringing over from Buffalo, I think that's good signs for the Chicago Bears defense. So, yeah, I think they're going to be a defense that not a lot of people are going to be expecting to be good. But I think, yeah, as the season sort of goes along and we see how good this offense can potentially be, I think this defense will sort of go along with them for the ride. So, yeah, I like this Bears defense to be, well, definition of this topic here, a sleeper defense.
The Bears definitely won the offseason. I will say that. The Bear of all, if you like force me to choose like who had the best offseason of 2024, it's pretty hard not to pick Chicago. Here's my only concern is I like the Bears a lot as a matchup based defense. Like they could be that defense where I wake up Wednesday morning and first thing I'm doing is checking waiver wire and I get the Bears, defense. I'm pumping my fist. That division's really good. They got to play, the Vikings twice. They got to play the Lions twice, assuming the Vikings are, somewhat capable. I think they're still a dangerous weapon. The Packers, if the now highest paid quarterback in the league can live up to his contract, that's my one concern exclusively for people who are looking at them as a, season long investment. That carries more risk. But yeah, if it's the Bear, I don't know their schedule off the top of my head, but if it's Bears versus Raiders, please give me the Bears all day long.
Yes, the schedule does play a factor. So for sure, it could be a situation where maybe that's not the best matchup. But yeah, like maybe especially if you're drafting them off the waiver wire for matchup-based starts, I think they're a team that maybe a lot of people overlook. I think they can have a good matchup.
S tier is the top. Why is S tier the top one? I never understood that meme.
I don't know. That
Damn
never made sense to me.
youngings.
All right, Ted, so let's talk about fantasy defenses. Now let's sort of talk about the fantasy kickers here. So, I mean, it's a little tougher to do your kicker research because, I mean, there's, lots of changes here. And, like, even midway through the season, lots of teams change kickers as well. So, I mean, it's, like, little tougher, but just, like, overall, just looking at the landscape of a team, just what's a kicker situation that you're not really touching?
Oh, see, I disagree. I thought my kicker research was way easier than doing defense.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so my bust for kicker was actually pretty easy. Actually, is because I just think his proper place is in the kitchen, serving his family, and he should take pride in that. That is his God-given role in life. Because when it comes to fantasy kicking and just being a decent human being, this guy sucks, and that is Harrison Butker. Now, look, I know this trap because I've fallen for this trap twice in the last 4 years. And that's why research was so interesting, because I look back at it. Now, here's why it makes the perfect bust, is because, especially kickers, and normally, I think in every episode of this series, I've said, I think the cat is a trap for casual fans, not so much for, more loyal fantasy guys. When it comes to kickers, I think even loyal fantasy guys are going to fall in this trap where you got the Chiefs kicker, Chiefs have Mahomes, Chiefs score a lot. That means kicker scores a lot. You look at, last year's rankings, if they're anything like me, where I don't go off projections, I go off, what did you do for me last year? And like I said, he finished as the fourth best kicker. However, last year was the most inept we've ever seen the Chiefs offense under Patrick Mahomes' command. And they still won the Super Bowl, which goes to show you how ridiculously good this team is. But anyway, point being is that team kicked a lot more field goals than usual. You want proof? Let me show you proof. So I went back over the past 4 years. Like I said, last year, fourth. In 2022, he finished 27th.
Is that the year he got hurt too?
I don't know. In 2021, he finished 15th.
Okay.
In 2020, he finished 11th. This dude consistently, despite being on the best offense in football, consistently finishes outside of the top 10. He is a fantasy thirst trap. And I mean that. No, I say that knowing that term probably pisses him off, which makes me very, very happy.
Oh, God.
This offense is just too good to make. The same thing happened with Vinatieri. I always remember when I first started getting into fantasy football with Vinatieri and the Colts, I always wanted like one Colt on my team. So like, screw it, I'll draft Vinatieri. But the problem is Peyton Manning scored too damn much. So Vinatieri would get 4 points because all he did was kick 4 extra points and no field goals. Butker is doing largely the same. So I think that is a huge part of his game that you need to look out for. I can see you looking up when he got hurt. I don't give a shit when he got hurt because, as I just pointed out, there are multiple years where he finished outside the top 10. So get that. Oh, I was hurt. Get that the fuck out of here. So, I'm not going to go for another cheap graduation speech joke. But point being is Butker is one of those guys. And this happened. And it's not just Butker. It's a lot of the Ravens kicker. Well, actually, that's not true. Justin Tucker is amazing. What's another really good offense in the NFL? Okay, here's was one. Ryan Suckup, when he was the kicker in Tampa Bay, when Tom Brady was there. Not that good of a kicker. Fantasy-wise. Talent-wise, he was good. But fantasy-wise, no, he was a liability. Because, again, there's a difference between that one extra point and, those 3 points on the field goal. I think that with Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, and Hollywood Brown, this Chiefs offense is arguably we went for the worst it's been under Mahomes. So I think we're going to see the best Chiefs offense under Mahomes. I'm not seeing a whole lot of promise there for Butker.
So 2022 was when he got hurt.
Who cares?
He missed 4 games that season, and that was his career low in field goal attempts as well as makes. So
that must have been God's will.
But no, I completely agree with you. That's like, offenses that score a lot of teams may gravitate towards drafting those kickers because like they're always going to have scoring opportunities. But that's the problem. If you're scoring too many touchdowns, that's going to lead to more touchdowns and extra points, which only get you 1 point, whereas opposed to field goals get you 3. So that's why we talked about this in last year's episode where we talked about kickers and defense, where it's like you want that offense that's like they'll get you close enough, but for some reason they struggle in the red zone. So that's where you're going to have to settle for a lot of field goals. And then in the exception of Justin Tucker, who plays on a pretty good offense, but because he has the leg of Legatron or just whatever you want to call it, right?
He'll kick 4 extra points and then a 60-yarder and tack on like 6 extra points.
And so the 60-yard field goal is going to get you the extra points because it's so much longer, right? So it's like that's the biggest thing as well there. So, but actually, it's funny, Tab, because all the same reasoning as to why that you don't like Harrison Butker is the same exact reasoning that I'm going to apply to my bust here. It's my own kicker, Jake Moody. I just don't like Jake Moody on the San Francisco
Did
offense.
Moody want his wife in the kitchen as well?
Well, last season, Moody played in 6 games where he's kicked 0 field goals or only 1. So, I mean, just like we talked about, San Francisco had a very high-scoring offense. They led the league in NFL. They led the NFL in scoring touchdowns last season. So, that was 61. So, now 61 extra points that Jake Moody attempted. But there's very few opportunities where he was actually kicking field goals. So, while he also has a very big leg, very similar to Justin Tucker, I think just there's more instances where I think the Niners can find their way moving down the field a little bit more easily, where it's like they'll be in more chances to score opportunities. And like we talked about, when they have Christian McCaffrey, it's a lot easier to score touchdowns compared to settling for field goals for Jake Moody. So while I think a lot of people may be drafting it because, once again, everything that you laid out, because they're on a very high-scoring offense with a lot of high prolific players that can get the ball down the field, I think just there's going to be 2 opportunities where they come away with 6 as opposed to having to settle for 3. So, yeah, I just don't like Jake Moody this year.
I will say this, because I agree with you, and not just because your offense is too good, but also Jake Moody was pretty inconsistent last year.
He actually started pretty hot, and then he got inconsistent, and then he started to turn it up at the end, too.
And that was the story I was going to share is, look, I'm not a religious man. I had nothing emotionally invested in last year's Super Bowl. I just won a good game, and I got a pretty good game. I woke up Super Bowl Sunday last year, and my first thought when it came to the Super Bowl was, dear God, please let Moody be okay. Because like he was a kid, he was like a 21-year-old kid in one of the most high pressure games ever. And yes, like you said, it was very like roller coaster up and down. I'm like, I think I texted you when he made his first field. Because no, he set the Super Bowl record, didn't he? And they got broken like 10 minutes later.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So he said, I think I texted you after he did that. I was like, Moody. I didn't give a shit about Moody, but he did it. I was like, okay, good for him. So no, he's a good kicker. But yeah, again, fantasy wise, it's counterintuitive because on the surface level, that logic makes sense. This offense is good. Their kicker will be good. But when you just scratch a little deeper, no, it's actually the complete opposite.
Agreed. So, all right, Tad, with all your good kicker research, do you have a sleeper for me at the kicker position that you're trusting this year?
Here's why I'm laughing, because I this is the most BS research I've ever done. You're gonna love this. No, you're gonna love this stat I shared. All right, look, it's our last position of the series. I have yet to pick a single player from my Indianapolis Colts. So, and before I get to the stat, this is not like a joke pick. I actually do think he will be really, really good.
To be honest with you, I actually would have picked this guy as well, but you picked him first. I was like,
oh, there we go. Wow, rare time those roles are reversed. The stat's still hilarious though. And so I picked Matt Gay, the kicker of the Indianapolis Colts. Now, Amir, I look back at the last 5 years. This is great. And for the last 5 years, one or the other, either Matt Gay or an Indianapolis Colt kicker has finished in the top 10.
Wow. Okay. That's not bad.
That's you there a bit because Matt Gay had like 2 down years, but luckily that was like 2021 when Blankenship finished as like number 3. I was like, great, either Colts or Matt Gay.
Hey, I'll take it. Take it.
The specs really bailed me out there.
Yeah. For that 1 year, then he absolutely fell off.
Oh, that was tragic. I was so excited as him to be our future kicker. He was the next Vinatieri. Oh man, I miss you. Respect the specs, baby. Anyway, point being though is like, yeah. So let me restate: 3 out of the last 5 years, Matt Gay has been in the top 5 kickers in fantasy football. Not top 10, top 5. So I really think that, you look, and by the way, one of those was last year with the Indianapolis Colts. Because I know people will, fact check me and go back and be like, well, he was with the Rams. Well, think about what we just said about our bus. That's a very highly touted offense that ideally would follow the traditional fantasy thought process of offense that scores a lot. He's not doing so hot, but clearly he may do, which means he's a good kicker that makes the most of his opportunities. Now, Amir, I know the answer. Who was the Colts starting quarterback for most of the season?
Last year was Gardner Minshew.
If he can finish top 5 kickers, Gardner goddamn Minshew is his quarterback, I can't wait to see what he can do with Anthony Richardson, Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, A.D. Mitchell, hopefully Alec Pierce. I'd like to see you come back. We'll see. I think he's going to get buried. But anyway, point being is,
Hey, if you're getting buried by Adonai Mitchell, I will take that.
I will
I will
absolutely take that as well. Which really sucks. I like Alex Pierce, but
I did
point
too.
being is, I was debating using this word for this offense. I really think this might be the most underrated offense going into the season. It doesn't really feel like a whole lot of people are talking about the Colts offense, but this is a stacked offense. And so I think that they're playing a tough enough division that Texans offense or their offense as
Offense
well.
and defense.
Yeah, well, but yeah, I meant to say defense, but yeah, the offense is also really good. The Texans defense is really good. The Jags defense, they just invested very heavily in this offseason. I'm not too scared about the Titans. But point being is, I think that this is the perfect offense that is going to produce a lot of points, but also not do such a great job finding the end zone all that, consistently. So I think that Matt Gay is primed for another top 5 finish. I don't think a lot of people are going to be, looking at him as a top tier kicker.
No, I definitely agree with this one because, yeah, exactly everything that you laid out. Where it's just like, I think a lot of people, I would say it's one of the most underrated offenses in the league, but it's definitely one of them. Where it's just like, I think a lot of people are underestimating how good potentially this Colts offense can be. Maybe not necessarily this year, but it's like they have kind of like we were talking about with the Bears earlier, where it's like they sort of extended and they have all these core pieces now. That's like for the next 4 or 5 years, as long as the core is there, they can compete on offense. So it's like the Colts sort of have that with a lot of these rookie contracts where it's like, I think then obviously they signed Michael Pittman Jr. right to the extension. So it's like they have that core talent there on offense too. That's like, yeah, as soon as they start to gel together and build that chemistry, I think they could be a very good offense in this league and sort of, give Colts fans hope like you. So it's like with
just to break it, they give us hope up until about week 14 or 15, and then they just snap our hope like it's Batman's back.
But with that, it's like I think the Colts offense may make some good strides this year, but exactly like you said, where it's like they may not score all the time, but they'll be in good situations where Matt Gay can sort of get them some points on the board with some field goals. So yeah, Matt Gay may be one of those kickers that I think a lot of people may decide to overlook as far as just like, yeah, the Colts offense, how can I trust them? But yeah, Matt Gay could be one of their key contributors for sure for that offense and scoring for sure. So I'm going to go with another LAFB pick here, Tad, and that is the kicker for the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm going to say Cameron Dicker. Dicker, the kicker here. So I have to compare this to when Jim Harbaugh was the head coach for the San Francisco 49ers for 4 seasons. So during those 4 seasons, Jim Harbaugh was the head coach. The San Francisco 49ers had a kicker that ranked in 2011, his first year, first. 2012, first. 6th in 2013 and 17th in 2014. That was a pretty down year there. But that is the ranks in most field goals attempted in the league. And so, Tad, I'll give you $10 if you name either of those 2 kickers. I'll give you a hint. They were not drafted by the Niners.
I'm not going to lie. I was trying to think of a title for this week's episode. So can you repeat the question?
So in the 4 years that Jim Harbaugh was head coach for the 49ers, they had 2 kickers during that span. One kicker was there for 2011 and 2012, and then they signed another kicker for 2013 and 2014 seasons. Do you think you name either of those kickers?
David Akers.
David Akers is the first one. Yeah, so he's the one who led the league in attempts in 2011 and 2012, their Super Bowl year. Do you think you can name the other kicker?
I want to say Robbie Gould.
No, Robbie Gould came after this kicker. Robbie Gould came after this kicker. It was Phil Dawson.
I knew it was an old white guy.
Yeah. It was a Browns cast off there. So
Damn
he was in 2013 and 2014. But I think you can sort of see there that's like with those offenses that the Niners had. I talked about this before. That's like they had a pretty good offense, but it was like Alex Smith was leading the charge. Colin Kaepernick was leading the charge, where it's like very similar to what I can expect with the Colts offense, where it's like they'll get them down the field, but there's not always going to be an opportunity where they're going to be able to punch it in for a touchdown every single take or air it out for a touchdown every single drive. So I think this is going to be a very similar situation in Los Angeles, where it's like I think they'll be heavy at running the ball. I think Justin Herbert obviously has to get used to his new weapons on the outside. So I think there's going to be a lot of chances where they'll fall just a little bit short, and they're going to have to end up settling for a kick here. And so, yeah, I think Cameron Dicker, who's right now, based on rankings that I've seen, he's being drafted right around the 10th kicker off the board.
I was about to say, I'm surprised he's getting drafted at all.
Yeah, so if he's being drafted at 10th spot or later or not at all, I feel like he has top 5 level talent based on the offense that he's in.
I mean, okay, I'm not going to say he's a sleeper, but I'm going to put another, fantasy cliche label on him, which essentially means the same thing. The promise is there. I just think, the risk is also there, and that is why I'm not going to call him a fantasy sleeper at kicker, but I'm going to call him my kicker boom or bust pick of the year.
I can see
boom
that.
Or bust, boom or bust. Because yes, I could totally see everything you said happening. The Chargers offense is just good enough to get them down there, but not quite good enough because it's basically been what the Chargers have been for the last 3 years. But I could also see this Chargers team just totally falling. I don't know what to make of the Chargers. I really don't.
It's going to be interesting to see, yeah.
If I've learned one thing, it's never underestimate Harbaugh. And so I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to call them a train wreck, but I'm just saying I could see it becoming a train wreck. So I am saying I see the sleeper potential, but I also think the floor is much lower than you're painting it to be. So I'm not going to say sleeper. I'm just going to say boom or bust.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but the other kicker that I like is also in LA, but Joshua Carty, the rookie out of Stanford. I think with that Rams offense, with both Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, obviously Kyron Williams and Matthew Stafford lead that charge, I think he may have a good amount of opportunities as well. But the one thing, very similar to like you said, where it's just it could go either way. He's a rookie kicker, so he can either
succeed,
I was just about to say, or he can absolutely fall apart. So yeah, very much like we likened it to Rodrigo Blankenship. He killed it his rookie year, but then after that, what happened to him? So yeah, if you only need to worry about it for 1 year. So
I always say
Waters didn't even start his rookie year. Like he didn't even start anywhere. He started. I just meant
he started. He didn't finish. He didn't finish his rookie year.
He went nowhere.
No, but that's what I mean is look, there are very few because I think flexibility is the name of the game when it comes to fantasy football. You got to be able to adapt to the situation. However, I have a list of maybe 3 to 5 fantasy rules I will follow under every circumstance. One of them, you make at least one trade every season.
Or in Tad's case, 10.
Or 12. But another one is don't trust a rookie kicker. Wait and see. There are plenty of other good options out there. Never ever draft a rookie kicker. Totally unnecessary risk.
That's fair. That's fair to make there. All right, Ted. So that'll actually close out our rankings for the year for 2024. You see the ticker coming right down below. That is all our social media handles. You can find me at UpTheSide23. You can find Ted at TedSide94. Find the show at the Decide Guys, and of course on Instagram at the Decide Guys as well. So like we talked about, we're done with our rankings, but we're going to get into so much other fantasy analysis and sleepers and busts and training camp battles and just a lot of other things are coming on tap. But if you want to look back at all of our rankings from the past episodes, including this one, we will do a full 1 through 12 for kickers and defenses as well. You can find that on all of our social media handles, which I just gave to all of you guys there. So check it out. Interact with it. Let us know what you think about the rankings. Just a reminder, my rankings are based off of pre-draft rankings. Pads are based off where he thinks they will finish at the end of the season. So use that in conjunction because it can really give you a good picture as far as what to sort of plan your draft strategy around. So wherever you listen to your podcast, make sure you subscribe there. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. And please, guys, give support to all of our good friends and the parent network, LAFB Network, because they're giving you a lot of great content when it comes to the training camp. Like I just talked about, we are live at Chargers and Rams training camp, giving you a lot of great first-hand sort of analysis as far as what's happening, what they liked, what they didn't like, what to expect for the season. So, guys, if you're Rams and Chargers fans, go check them out. They're giving you a lot of great information. And I'm pretty sure with the college football season right around the corner, too, our good friends from covering the Trojans and the Bruins at the college level, they're giving you a lot of great information with that season coming up right at the end of the month. So, I mean, Tad, football is right around the corner. It's very exciting time. Good for LAFB Network, good for our podcast. And to guys, everybody's already supporting our podcast when it comes to listening, when it comes to watching the videos, when it comes to interacting with us on social media, whatever you're doing to support the podcast, guys, we really can't thank you enough.
And look, I dropped a not so well worded teaser about it, but we have another series coming up pretty soon, or another episode coming up pretty soon in our Fantasy 101 series. So if you have any friends that, have always been like, I want to get in fantasy football, but it's a little too late, I'm not trying to do it. Kind of like, me with hockey. I really want to get into hockey, but I don't really quite have the guy to kind of ease me in because everyone's just, we were talking about this actually. You played NHL the game, and I'm like, yeah, I try to do a franchise, but I paid the left wing $80 million. Apparently you don't do that.
No, you don't do that.
I thought it was really good. Alex Dean, welcome to St. Louis. Anyway, welcome back to St. Louis, I should say. I'm not that bad of a fan. Did he ever leave St. Louis? I am that bad of a fan. Point being is, if you don't want to be as or if you don't want your friend to be as clueless about fantasy football as I am about hockey, we are dropping a 101 episode, or a couple episodes, still up in the air there, relatively soon, within the next 2 weeks. So be sure to check that out. We are also doing a little bit of draft preview stuff, NFL draft preview stuff. Yes, we're already looking all the way into April 2025 and just saying that year number makes me feel old. But we're also doing tons of fantasy draft prep. That is going to be our main focus going in August. So, guys, we have IDP. I almost forgot that. We have defensive players.
We'll be doing an IDP episode, 100%.
You see how much stuff we have on our platter. We have, if you need it in fantasy football, chances are it's coming your way. And if you haven't heard something that you need that's not coming your way, let us know. Because we're planning our schedule for August shortly after recording, so we want to help you guys out the most before, as much as we can before the season begins. So let us know. As always, everyone, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching, and please stay safe, everyone.